So last classes we are discussing about the data intensive computing, and in that classes we discussed that because of the large amount of data we are generating day by day through different sources, right? So if you are going to have a different data like structured data, unstructured data and semi-structured data, then how we are going to process that bulk amount of data? So in distributed intensive computing, it is nothing but it's going to process the huge amount of data. It's going to use different types of technologies. So what are the different types of challenges that we are going to get right now, right? Today worlds, what are the different challenges you have? You're going to see in some of the challenges in distributed intensive computing. The challenges are going to describe one by one. The first thing is that the huge amount of data produce, analyze or sort is impose requirement on the supporting structure. It means that we are generating a huge amount of data from different sources. So we need to process that amount of data to get a proper insight information, because getting data is not a solution, right? You have to analyze the data, and after analyzing the data, we are going to find valuable information from the data. It means you are going to get insight information from the data. The biggest challenge is that if the data is being produced in the forms of hexabyte, terabytes or zettabytes, then how we are going to store them and how we are going to process them, because this is the biggest challenge we are going to face in a face for the intensive computing application, because intensive computing applications going to process the huge amount of data. So how they are going to process it, what are the different types of techniques they are going to use to process the bulk amount of data. And second thing is that the location of data. See, we are generating data not in the forms of kilobyte and not in the forms of megabytes. We are generating data in the forms of petabytes, exabytes, zettabytes. It means we have a bulk amount of data are being generated. So suppose in a system you have bulk amount of data, so it is not possible to move that data from one place to another place, because if you move the data from one place to another place, what happens? The performance of the systems will degrade, because you cannot carry the bulk amount of data from one place to another place. So if you are not able to carry this bulk amount of data, then what kind of procedures or what kind of techniques are going to use to process that bulk amount of data? Because it is totally impossible. It's impossible to carry the bulk amount of data from one location to another locations. So in that cases, how we can process that bulk amount of data? Okay, so here, because if suppose you are carrying the huge amount of data from one location to another location, definitely going to affect the computation power. Your high performance computations will be degraded. Okay, and here the one best thing is that you are going for the technique called as data partitions. Okay, data partition is very important techniques you are going to use, because if you have a huge amount of data that cannot be processed in a large scale, so what you can do is that you are going to perform data partitions. In the sense, we are going to divide this large data into small chunks, into small partitions. You can say you may have 7 partitions or you may have 8 partitions depending upon the large data sets. So once you do the partitions, what happens? We can able to perform the parallel processing. Parallel processing can be take place, and parallel processing is going to improve the high performance computations. So that you are going to approach what approach? Data partitioning approach you are going to approach. Also, we are going to use the replication factors, because you see, if once we are going to store data in one system, it will not going to give you reliability. It's not going to provide you the fault tolerance, because if one system is getting crashed, then you cannot recover the data. So what we can do is that we are going to replicate the same data into 3 different nodes. Okay, so if one nodes are getting crashed, we can able to recover data from the other nodes. Okay, that is going to call as the reliability. So we can achieve the reliability, but how we can achieve the reliability? With the help of replication factors. Okay, for example, you see, if I am going to have a data in one system, what I am going to do is that I am going to replicate into a different nodes. See, you have node 1, we have node 2, we have node 3. So this is called as node 1, this is called as node 2, and this is going to call as node 3. So the same data, what we can do, we can place them into node 1, we can place them them into node 2, we can place them into node 3, and then what, we can able to process them. So in that situation, what in such situation, what happens, if node n1 is getting crashed out, we can easily recover data from the second node or from the second node. So this is going to aid you what, this is going to aid you the reliabilities and availabilities also. So the main intention of data intensive application is what, data intensive application must provide three important things. One is called as reliability should be achieved, the second is going to call as the availability must be maintained, and third is going to call as maintainability. We are going to maintain the huge amount of the data. So maintainability is important, availability is also important, and reliability is also important, which is going to call as RAM. So R stands for reliability, A stands for availability, and M stands for maintainability. Okay, so we are going to maintain the huge amount of data sets. So if the data intensive applications are able to achieve these three important objectives, that is reliability, availability, and maintainability, we can say that the data intensive applications are working in a very good aspects. Now, you're going to see this is the architecture of data intensive applications, right? See, what are data intensive applications we have? Data intensive applications always use the large data sets, not small data sets, and not a small data, you can say. It's going to use the big data. For example, you see Facebook have the use a large amount of data because the Facebook's users are around the globe. Millions of users are accessing the Facebook services, so they are keep on generating the huge amount of data. So Facebook is what is example of data intensive application. If you see in your mobile using Facebook application, this example of what, data intensive application. YouTube is what, example of data intensive applications. Amazon is what, Amazon is example of data intensive application. We have website like LinkedIn is what, example of data intensive website. YouTube website is what, example of data intensive website. So these kind of website applications, they are using the huge data from the different sources, and they want to process them, and they want to get the outcome for them and for the user, and also they are going to perform the analytic operations from the data to know the customer's feedback, to know the customer sentiment, and that will going to help them to improve the organizations for the betterment in the futures. So here, this data intensive application is not going to run with the help of the small data. It requires a huge amount of data which can be scaled up and to process using the different technologies. So these are the simplest architecture of data intensive applications, right? How these data intensive applications are going to be used. Now see if you see these architectures, this is the user we have, right? This is users we have, and you are going to interact to this application code. This application code is nothing but it is just act like a glue between the primary database, glue between the full text index, and glue between the memory cache. So it is just like the glue between the different sources we have. So this is the customers that are going to interact to the application code. For example, suppose you have a browser, right, and you want to interact to the Facebook. First, what you're going to do, we are going to go for the authentication. First, you have to check user ID and password, right? So Facebook will ask you, please give your user ID and password. So we are providing the user ID and password. That's going to call as authentication. So this application code happens, we're going to read the request, first check if data is cached or not. So this is called as cache memory. This cache memory is used to provide the fast accessing, to read the content at very fast speed. So it will going to minimize the reading time. So for that, you're going to use what? You're going to use a cache memory. So whatever the request comes from the user, first is direct to the cache memory, and from the cache memory is going to verify the data, and if the data is available, this is going to call as cache hit, and if that data is not available, then this is going to call as cache miss. If the miss happen, it means the required data is not available in a cache memory, then you request come to the primary database, and from this database you're going to capture your required data, and the same time what happens, this data is going to be updated into the cache memory also. So suppose I need some data. First, what I should do is that I'm going to see the cache memory, whether this data is available or not available. And if this data is available, I can access easily from the cache memory, which can speed up my reading capability, which can save my time for accessing that content. Suppose if the data is not available in cache memory, then what will happen? The miss will take place, and if miss will take place, I'm going to look this data into the primary database, and from there I can fetch that data. At the same time, I can update this content to the cache memory for my future references. Okay, so in this way the things is going to be happen, and this is called as data warehouse, which can store the large amount of data, and for what? For the analytical purpose. Suppose if Facebook is there and they are getting the huge amount of data from the different customers, and they want to know the performance of their companies, and they want to know the customer feedback, so they are going to perform some kind of analytical on this data, right? So to perform this analyticals, they are using different types of BI tools they're using, and BI tools will help you to get the results from the data which is stored in the data warehouse. So this is nothing but it is what it is used for. It is used for the analytical purpose. Now this is called search request we have. For example, let me give an example for you that you are using LinkedIn. In LinkedIn you want to search a job, okay, based on your profile. Based on profile you want to search a job. So what are you going to do? You are going to give some request to this index, that based on your keywords. Your keyword is what? Software engineers. You want to search job on which field? On Java field, or which field? Data mining builds, or which field? Data science field. So data science is nothing but it's a keyword. So based on the keywords we are going to perform the searching, and searching means going to perform the search request. This search request will come to the full index text, and from there you're going to the search will going to be updated here. And this is called as asynchronous task. This asynchronous task is nothing but, suppose you want to send email, right? You want to send email. So if you want to send email means what? We have to give request, and this is going to call as message queue, and for this application code the mail has to be sent. Okay, so this application code is what? It is just like a glue between the different resources we have. Like we have the message queue, we have the primary database, we have the cache memory. So through application code only we are going to access all kind of services. So it's like the LinkedIn website or LinkedIn application is what? It is kind of data intensive application, because that kind of applications are using the huge data from the different sources in order to process and in order to perform the different kind of queries on the data. So nowadays most of the companies like Google, Yahoo, you can say the Apples, and these companies are basically running data intensive applications, and they require a huge amount of data. So they follow this kind of architectures here. Now you are going to see what are the major components you are going to use in data intensive application. As our previous diagram shows that you are using database may be MySQL we can use Oracles, we can use cache memory, because cache memory is not a permanent memory, you call it temporary memory, right? Temporary memory, what is use of this cache memory? To speed up the reading. So to speed up the reading operation or to improve the performance of your system, you can use the cache memory. The cache memory is going to speed up the reading operations, because instead of going to primary database, you can directly retrieve data from the cache memories, which can speed the reading operations. So cache memory is going to use for the improvement of performance. The performance has to be improved through the cache memory. And full text index, this is nothing but for searching query. Suppose searching data, for searching data by keyword, we are going to use a full text index. So full text index is basically used to search some kind of keyword. For example, LinkedIn, you want to search job on Java, so Java is going to call as keyword. Based on Java only, we are going to be your profile will be searched through that keyword only, and it's going to reflect you different types of jobs which is available around the globe. Now message queue, this message queue is nothing but message passing between the process. Suppose you have the client and server and you want to pass message between them, so the client process will communicate to server process. So it's just like a process communication. So they're going to communicate through the message passing systems. Then we have string process. You see, once you get the data as a huge data, you need to process them. So for processing the huge data, we are going to use two approach. One is the real-time approach, and one is going to call as on the historical data. So real-time data means what? Live data. So if you want to process live data, for that you are going to use what? You're going to use the Apache Spark. The Apache Spark is being used to have a stream processing and to have a real-time processing. So if you want to process the real-time data, then you have to use the Apache Spark, and for that I'm going to give you details information about the Apache Sparks in the next presentations. And then you have batch processing. This batch processing nothing but it is basically used on historical data. Historical data in the sense, suppose Facebook has collected some data today and they want to process tomorrow. So tomorrow data they will process into third day data they will process on the fourth day. The fourth day data they will process on the fifth day. This kind of process is called what processing? It is going to call it batch processing. And for the batch processing, you are going to use what kind of techniques? You are going to use Hadoop. This Hadoop is basically used to process what? To process the batch processing. Then you have application code. Already I told that the application is nothing but it is connectivity between the above components. So above components you have seen we have a cache memory, we have primary database, we have full index. So this can be connected through the application code. So this application code is just like interface between these different components. So through this application codes only, it's give you interface to access this kind of services through this application code. So these are the major components are going to use what you are going to use in the data intensive applications. Now coming to the open challenges. So what are the open challenges we are having in the coming in the data intensive applications? And for that let me see here we required 8 important things for the data intensive applications. If we have the 8 important things, then we can say data intensive applications can be working in a very finest way, and it's going to provide you very good results. So what are the things you will require for data intensive application? One is called as scalable algorithms. You see, data intensive applications never use the scalable. Scale in the sense we are going to have a scale out and a scale up. Scale up means what? You're going to improve the performance of the system. That is going to call a scale up. Scale out means what? We are going to add a number of nodes in horizontal way. So basically this data intensive applications are going to follow the scale out. The scale out means what? We are going to add a number of nodes to improve the performance of the systems. You are going to add a number of nodes to perform a number of processing in a parallel processing can be take place. It means we are taking the big task, and big tasks, what happens, you divide it into different nodes, and all nodes are going to process them into parallel form. So this data intensive applications use what? It use out the scale out operations. So why you need scalable algorithms? Because you see nowadays data are keep on generating day by day. Today we may have 1 terabyte, tomorrow we may have 1 petabyte, next day we may have 1 exabyte. It means data are keep on generating. It means that we are going to get a huge data sets. So once you are going to have a huge data sets, then how you can process them? It is not possible to process them at a single shot. What we can do is that we have to divide them into small pieces and distribute them into different machines, into different nodes. That is going to call as what? Scale out. So you are in positions to handle the large amount of data sets. If data sets are growing, we are incapable of adding more number of nodes. If data sets are shrinking, then you are capable of reducing the number of nodes. So this much of flexibility we can have the services. So cloud computing is going to provide you such kind of services using S3, which is called as simple store services, or elastic blocker services, or elastic file systems. So these are the systems using cloud computing which can scale up your scale out your different types of storage capability. So we can store huge amount of data, we can process huge amount of data using the horizontal scalability. So for that, to run intensive applications, you need to be more dynamic in the case of scalability. We can add more number of nodes, we can reduce number of nodes, we can do shrinking, we can expand the number of nodes, and for that you need to have scalable algorithms. Next is new meta management technology must be used. See, when you are going to have a huge data sets, then definitely you are going to use one concept is going to call as metadata. Metadata is very important. For example, let me say example for you. Suppose we have large data sets. And what happens? Large data sets were divided into many partitions. You divide into 5 partitions. So one partitions you are giving to data node 1. Okay. Second partitions you are giving to data node 2. Third partitions are given to data node 3, and so on. It means that the same data sets we are dividing into different small parts, and each parts what we distribute into different nodes. Now we should track out the information that in this node how many data are being stored, in this node how many data are being stored, in this node how many data or files are being stored. Then how you should know that in this data net contains how many blocks, how many data are present in these data nodes, how we know that in these data nodes how many blocks are there, and how many files are present in these data nodes, and how you should know that in this block how many blocks are there and how many files are present in these data nodes. So to track all this information, what happens, there will be called as master node will be there, which is called as master node, and which is also called as what node? It is also called as the kind of name node. And this name node, what happens, is going to maintain a kind of metadata. What data is going to call as metadata. What happens? This metadata will contain information, the abstract information about this data node. This data node is holding how many files. In this data nodes, how many files are available, in this data nodes how many files are available, and this data nodes how many files are available. It means that it has a proper tag information about the each and every data nodes. In each data nodes, how many informations are being there, and where this information had been stored, in which block this information is being there. So to know each and every information very particularly, what happens, we are going to maintain the metadata. So basically, who can maintain the metadata? The master nodes are going to maintain the metadata, which is called as a metadata management technology. So without metadata management technology, it is not possible to manage the huge bulk amount of data. For example, you see the example of Bina University. We have thousands students are studying in different departments, in different they are taking different courses. Some of them are taking CSE course, some of them are taking IT course, some of them are taking EC course. They have bench number of courses are there. Now I want to track out in which section my son is studying, in which section my daughter is studying. So how I can track out, right? So I need to contact whom? I need to contact the universities, right? The university will maintain some metadata, right? The universities know, okay, Mr. X will be studying in the department of the CSE. In CSE department, he's studying in the section number 3. In section number 3, his roll number is registered there. So through metadata only, it is very easy to find any kind of queries. Without metadata, it is very difficult to perform a searching and to retrieve information from the large data sets. So if you want to retrieve information from the large data sets, okay, we have to maintain the metadata. And data intensive applications it's really on the large data set. It's really on the big data. So for that, we need to maintain the new data, or it's mandatory to maintain the metadata technology. And metadata technology is what is going to help you to find the relevant information from the different scattered data nodes, because data nodes are scattered here and there, and we want to retrieve the particular information, and to retrieve particular information, we need to retrieve through the metadata only. So this name node, what happens? This name node is going to maintain the metadata information, and this name node knows where this data is being stored and which data nodes carries which amount, what amount of data, and which files are being stored in which data nodes. Okay, so this is going to call as what? New metadata technology must be used for data intensive applications. So if you have a proper metadata technology, so we can say that we can able to manage data intensive applications in a very proper and effective way. And the third one is called as high performance computing platform, right? So we need to have a very high performance computing platform, because we are going to perform the computations on the large data sets, and to perform the computation large data set is not easy task, right? Because when you take in the large data sets, we divide them into small chunks, you divide them into small data sets, and each small data sets, what happens, you are going to give into the each and every machines, each and every nodes, and all nodes are going to process them in a parallel processing, right? So to perform this kind of parallel processing, we have to use very high performance computing operations, right? For example, you can use Hadoop for the batch processing, and you can use Apache Spark for the real-time processing. So you need to have very high performance computation technology must be employed to perform the data processing in a fastly and quickly manners, because processing a large data set is not a simple task, it's very tedious task, and we have to do in a very intensive and very proper manners. Now, high performance, high reliable pattern skills distributed file system. This is very important things. See, we need to maintain distributed file system. What distributed file system is that? Suppose I have a data, right? Suppose I have a data X. This is my X is a large data set. So what I can do is that I can divide into small parts, say X1, right? I say X2, right? Say X3. What I did, I divided into small parts. I divided. Now each one I have given to the each data nodes I am giving, right? So this one distributed to this node data nodes, and this one is distributed to this data nodes, and this one is distributed to this data nodes, right? So it means that the last data is what you divide into small partition, and each partitions you are giving to the different data nodes, and they are the one who can store them and who can process this amount of data. So what data nodes will do, through these data nodes you're going to store, and here you're going to process this data, here you're going to process data, and here you're going to process this data. Okay, so here you're going to get some results. So results, say x is the results, this is called x b is the results, this is called x is the results. It means that we are doing what operation? Doing distributed file system. It means that this file is what is being distributed among the different nodes, or this file is what is distributed across the different nodes to perform the parallel processing. And this kind of techniques, what happens, you're going to use in data intensive applications. Next is called as data signature generation technique. This is used for the data reductions and rapid processing. See, you are handling the large data sets, we are handling the big data sets, so we need to employ some kind of security techniques, right, to transfer data in a very secure manner. So you can do some kind of encryption, decryption, we can compress data in sender end, we can decompress data in the receiver end. So this kind of compression, decompression, encryption, decryption, encoding, decoding, this must be used where in data intensive application, and that is going to call as what data signature generation techniques. So this is going to help you to provide a rapid processing and also provide a security of your data. So to have a proper security and to have a proper rapid processing of your data, we are going to use what? Data generation techniques. The next approach is going to call as the software mobility for delivering algorithms. Okay, now you see here, suppose here we have a data, right? We have a huge data are there in this place. We have a huge data are there. Now suppose I want to process this data. What I will do, I cannot carry this data from this location to another location because this data is very huge. If I'm going to carry this data from one location, suppose I have a code here, I have a logic here. Through this logic only I'm going to process this data. Through this application code only I'm going to process this data. So but my logic code is in different system. Say system A. In system A I have the logical code, in system A I have the application code, and system B I have a data. Now my question is that if I am going to move this data from this system B to A system, it may take a lot of time. It may consume a lot of time. It may degrade my performance of the system because it will take time, number one. Second is what? It will degrade the performance, and its transfer rate is very much slower. So in order to overcome this kind of hurdles, this kind of problems, what you can do is that instead of moving this data from here to here, what you can do is that you are going to move this application code to this place where data is available. So in this place, what happens? Here in this place, data are located here. So just what I'm doing, I'm just moving this application code to this place and I'm processing this data. So I'm writing this logic here. In this logic, what I'm doing, I'm processing this logic here, and I'm getting this outcome. Right? This is going to call as what? The software mobility. For example, you see, students are sitting in the section A. Section A, students are there. Section B, students are there. Section C, students are there. Section D, students are there. Right? Now, yes, suppose as a faculty you are sitting in your cabin, and if you tell the students, if please all of you come to my cabin and I will going to teach you. So what are problems you're going to face? So first of all, there will be huge crowd, right? You are sitting at cabin and 300 students came to a cabin. Is it possible for you to process them? Of course you can process them, but for you it is very hurdles. It is very, very difficult task for you to manage all 300 students in your cabin. Right? It is not possible at all. And even this is corona time, so you have to maintain social distancing, you have to maintain a lot of protocols which is given by the university, and that is not feasible. So what do you do with respect? That's why the department has brought a system. What system brought? Wherever the students are there, you have to go and teach there. If the students will be there in A section, you have to go to the A sections, go and deliver your lecture. If the students are there in B sections, go there and deliver your lecture. If the students are there in C section, go there and deliver lecture. This is going to call as what? The mobility of the code. So you are the code, you are the person going to execute them, right? So they are not coming to your cabin, you are going there wherever data is available. In section A, data is available, the students are data, and you are processing them and you are teaching them. This is going to call as a software mobility. So data intensive applications are being used, this kind of different kinds of technologies in order to have a proper running environment. It needs scalable algorithms to scale up to scale out, and it needs what? It needs the metadata technology to manage the metadata technologies, right? It needs what? It needs software mobility. It requires high performance computing. So these are the things are required by the data intensive applications. Now also it requires the flexible and high performance software integration. What is mean of high performance software integration? See, do you think the data intensive applications will be running only in Ubuntu operating system? Not at all. It must support all kind of operating system. It must support different kind of system. It doesn't mean that it will going to run a specific system only. That is not integration. What is integration? Your application must support different types of systems. It may support Windows operating system, it may support Linux operating system, it may support Windows operating system. It means your intensive applications are integrated to support a different types of systems. That is going to call as what? Flexibility. It's very flexible and high performance software integration, because it's going to support different platforms. The different platforms can be supported by whom? By data intensive applications, and also called as what? Splice hybrid interaction architectures. So we should have a very hybrid interaction architecture, in the sense we can able to receive data from the different source. Okay, we can able to receive data as a structured data from the relational database. You can able to receive the data from the video, audio, and images. We can able to receive the data from this format, right? So text will be also called as a data format. So you can able to receive that data from the different form, right? Some forms may be a structured form, some form may be unstructured form, and some form may be called as semi-structured form. Okay, this is going to call as what? The hybrid interconnections architectures. It means data will be coming in the forms of gigabytes, in the forms of petabytes, in the forms of exabyte, from the different sources. Okay, so these are the important things are required for what? Required for data intensive applications. Now coming to the data clouds and big data, right? This is very important aspects you're going to see. See, what is big data actually you're talking about? The big data means what? The data which can be stored beyond our capacities, right? See, if you take the relational database management system, in that RDBMS, we are not able to store a huge amount of data. So when you're going to store a bulk amount of data, which can solve the relational database approaches, because by using relational database approaches, it is not possible to store the huge bulk amount of data, right? So this big data will going to allow you to store huge amount of data which cannot be stored using the relational database management systems, right? And once you are able to store them, now we have the cloud computing service will be available for you to process the huge amount of data. For example, I have a companies, right? I have a companies. In my companies, I am getting data from the customers, right? I have getting data from the customer in the sense of various forms, in the sense of purchase item, what are the items they purchase, in the forms of feedback, what are the feedback of the customers given to my companies. So I have n number of data available. Now my question is that I want to process this data to know the customer feedback, to know what kind of strategy I'm going to plan to improve my business, what kind of business plan I will make it so that I can improve further in the nearby futures. And for that, I have to process this data. I have to store the huge amount of data, and then I have to process this amount of data. So what is my problem is that the problem is that where I can store this bulk amount of data, but I don't have infrastructure, because my infrastructure is very limited, because it's not a big companies, it's a small companies, and my limitation is very much limited, because I don't have a proper infrastructure to store this amount of data. I don't have infrastructure to process huge amount of data. In this is what I can use. I can use a data cloud environment. I can use cloud computing environment, right? The cloud computing environments will provide you all kind of infrastructure for me to process and to store this data, right? So here nowadays the big data has become very popular, because the people can able to analyze the data through the cloud computing services. The cloud computing service will provide you infrastructure. Through that, we can able to access the different infrastructures. We can use infrastructure for the storage, you can use infrastructure for the processing, and you can do a lot of operations on the big data. And here we can do log analysis. What log analysis? Companies such as Google have massive amount of data in the forms of logs that are daily processed using their distributed infrastructure. So here the log analysis can be done because Google is a very big company and he want to know how many people are visiting their website and what kind of downloads they are making, what kind of search they are doing. So in order to that they are able to retrieve the information of every users, and they want to do some kind of analysis to know the top ranking, which is the top search in the Google, okay, which website the people are liking morely, which topics are rated number 1. So they want to analyze such kind of information, and for that they use the big data, right? They use to store this amount of data and they have to process it. Now, to the diffusions of cloud computing technologies that support data intensive computation, term big data has become popular. Now, why this big data has become very popular? The reason is that nowadays we have cloud computing services available. Okay, even though we are nothing to worry about the big data, even though your data is growing in the forms of exponential growth, because data is growing in exponential form, right? Not like a 1 2 is exponentially is growing. 2 square, 4 square, 2 square, right? Again 4, then again 16, 32 is going to be very exponential. In that range, it is possible for you to store this much of data? Of course, yes. Why? Because of cloud computing services we have. Now, Amazon is providing the cloud computing service. Amazon Web Services are there. So, if you want to store them, you can store, you pay and store. Process, you have to pay and store. So, once you pay, and you can avail the services from the cloud computing services. So because of that, the most of the companies are using these opportunities, even though they have less infrastructure, but they're accessing the services from the cloud computing environment. Now coming to the big data problems is where you can the problem of the big data is, then one is that we are generating the massive amount of data. We are getting the very huge bulk amount of data from the different sources. So these are the sources which I listed here. One is called as radio frequency identification, RFID. This RFID is kind of technology which is used to identify the object or to track the objects. If you want to identify the object or track the objects, they use RFID. So the RFID also generating the huge amount of data. Even though when you're going for the road for the road, and we have RFID tag on your car. So the toll plaza, they must to pay taxes, right? Suppose you want to pay taxes to toll plaza, so but you want to pay fastly, so you have the very fast tag will be available right now. So just in your car they will have the fast tag, and they'll try to retrieve information about your car, and they deduct money from your account. So this is happening because of RFID. So this RFID is become very famous to identify the objects. So if you want to identify the objects, so they can identify easily through RFID. The RFID is having the RFID tag, and it is also having the RFID readers. The readers is going to operate based on the microwaves. Okay, so microwaves will be generated, and they read information from the RFID tag in the forms of induction method. They use some kind of methods called the induction method. So the induction method, what happens? They retrieve information from the RFID tag to the RFID readers. So now because of RFID, we are getting a more amount of data from different sources. Second is sensor networks. You know, nowadays people are crazy about a smart house, IoT, everywhere, Internet of Things, everywhere sensors are being used. Okay, so if you want to have a smart house, you go for IoT technologies. So because of sensor, we are getting a lot of amount of data. The sensors will sense the data, and they will just pull you into your database. You are going to get a lot of data with the help of the sensors. So the sensors are being also one of the creativity of the data. So sensors will going to produce a huge amount of data. Second is called as the social networks. Of course, if people are crazy about social networks, we are always running behind Facebook, running behind Twitter, running behind LinkedIn, Instagram, and every time you are liking, disliking, sharing photos, sharing pictures, downloading pictures, sharing your sentiment comments, and you know, very elite comments to the social media. So that also lead to generation of the huge amount of data. And internet text and documents. Yes, of course, you are downloading the documents, sharing documents through internets, and PDF documents, Word documents, converting PDF to Word, Word to PDF. So this is also going to generate a huge amount of data. And internet search indexing. Of course, you are searching a lot of things through Google search engine and through Yahoo search engine, and that also going to generate ample amount of data. And call details records, military surveillances. So call detail records also a log records we have how many calls you made to one particular people. So telephony companies will maintain all these kind of records, medical records about the patients, right? Which patients are suffering from which kind of diseases right now, how many people are having corona disease in this area, that area. So they will have medical applications that came into existence. So they are also generating the huge amount of data. And photography achieve, video achieves a large scale e-commerce system. Nowadays people are doing photography, uploading images and videos and into the YouTubes, and also the e-commerce business also become a very famous in today's world. Everybody's want to purchase through online using Amazon, using Flipkart, online commerce systems, and they are buying and purchasing the product. So that also leads to generation of the huge amount of data. So these are the different sources we have which can lead to generate the huge amount of data. So this is one of the biggest challenges of the big data problem. So if the data are generating that level, in the levels of exponential level, in the levels of petabytes, zettabytes, yottabytes, then the biggest problem is that how we can store this bulk amount of data and how to process them. So two problems you are going to encounter here. One is how to store the big amount of data. Second is that once you store it, then how you can process them.